Canelo team, I was born ready, said they're done with middleweight and he's only dropping down for Errol Spence at 164. We about to talk about that. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, I want to make a follow-up video. I made a video about this, but I have other things that I want to talk about. In case you missed that video, subscribe to the channel and go listen to that video and then come back to this video. Now, Eddie Reynoso, Team Canelo, he did a recent interview and basically he says if everything goes well in September, presumably with Caleb Plant, the following year, Canelo would like to fight BIVOL or BETERBIEV. You know, some people can say that's cap, whatever. Then this is the interesting, look, this is the interesting part. I highlighted in green for you. Canelo would no longer drop to middleweight, 160 pounds. Write that down. The fight we are interested in, if we move down, would be Errol Spence at 164 as he's climbing. So they're saying they're not dropping down for anybody except for Errol Spence because they believe that to be a big fight. Now, I told you in my last video, and I'm going to say the same thing, I believe this is a bad look. Errol Spence is a terrific fighter. He's getting ready to fight Manny Pacquiao. So the only person you're willing to move down for is a welterweight. You know what I mean? And people say they don't understand the criticism for Canelo in terms of using strategy. I mean, in weight advantages and rehydration clauses for certain guys like Amir Khan. Amir Khan, Canelo didn't put a weight cap. There was no same day weigh in, no rehydration clause. You know why? Because he wanted to be as big as he could be to fight Amir Khan. And we know Amir Khan has a shaky chin. So as a result, it was what it was. And Amir Khan just had to deal with a bigger person. Amir Khan said that he believes on fight night, Canelo, I was born ready, was over 180 pounds and the fight was contested at 155. So that means he would have ballooned up 28 plus 30 pounds, right? And now when it comes to Errol Spence, in the case of Errol Spence, you got Future of Boxing in the comment section of Errol's post, and he just beat Montiel. Fun fight. A lot of people are hating on that, but it was a fun fight. And he's a full-fledged 160 pounder, and he told you post-fight he wants to fight Golovkin, Hernagas, or Canelo. I was born ready. And you look at the height on Charlo, you look at his back, you look at the size. If JERMALL Charlo can make 160, then Canelo can make 160. Trust me. You know, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm no Chris Algieri, but look at how big this dude is. If he can make 160, and even Montiel is a big dude, you know what I mean? If Charlo can make 160, then Canelo can definitely make 160. But his team chooses not to, as I just showed you. The only way they'll move down is for Errol Spence. Man. So I firmly believe if JERMALL Charlo can make 160, Canelo can. It's a matter of choice. Look at the man. Look how big he is, right? So he obviously is okay fighting the smaller person in Errol Spence. So both guys have a brand. Both guys are from Texas, but he wants to fight Errol Spence, who happens to be the welterweight of the two. You know, this is why Canelo has received the criticism that he's received. And previously, Canelo Alvarez told the whole world that he plans to unify the division. Boom, Exhibit A. Here's an old article from Canelo Alvarez. This writer, Dan, doesn't even work for ESPN, so you know it was in 2019. And it says Canelo outpoints Jacobs to further unify the division. Canelo, boxing's biggest star, got a win. It says in a performance in which he mixed all this stuff, blah, 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 Alvarez won a UD over Jacobs to unify the 3 middleweight titles, leaving him one shy of undisputed at 160. Now, around this same time, Canelo and his team told you they wanted to unify the middleweight division. The same thing he's saying at 168, but that path would have had to include JERMALL Charlo. JERMALL Charlo was a mandatory, and then it would have had to include Demetrius Andrade, who has the WBO belt, who crashed his party. So look, this is Andrade, who's been calling out Canelo for years at this point to no avail, right? Look, he's doing Clubber Lang stuff. He says, me again, and he tagged Canelo, right? So he's been storming on Canelo. We call Canelo a bitch, and he hasn't been able to get the fight. even though he has the same promoter. He has the same promoter in Eddie Hearn, who's been working with Canelo, right? So I just think this is a bad look. You look at Errol Spence, he's about to fight a Hall of Famer in Manny Pacquiao. So at the end of the day, Errol Spence has multiple options in a win versus Manny Pacquiao. If Errol Spence beats Pacquiao, he's lit. You know, he's going to be super lit. This fight is coming up sooner than later. They just initially unveiled it on Premier Boxing Champions. And Canelo's trying to fight a welterweight, right? Now, they did throw out the name. See, there's Pacquiao Spence official. They did throw out a name in terms of BETERBIEV. They said BETERBIEV is a name of interest. But the great thing about my channel is I give you guys the news. This is why you guys got to like and subscribe, so the algorithm recognizes that you guys want to see all the content. But I made a video about this, and boom, this is on my website. Artur Beterbiev finally admits that Canelo Alvarez's team never sent an offer, and he's down to fight Canelo still. So once again, Canelo's team, the video's online. You can find it. You can find it on my website, right? Artur Beterbiev finally admits this is because Eddie Reynoso and Team Canelo previously said they wanted to fight Artur Beterbiev, which is what they're now saying, as you guys see. They're now saying they want to fight Beterbiev or BIVOL, right? They used Beterbiev's name and said, oh, we wanted to fight against Beterbiev, but his people never got back to us, so we moved forth with Kovalev or whatever reason that they gave. But that's not true, according to Beterbiev's team, right? So we know what it is. Canelo has been on this Euro tour, fighting mostly Eastern European fighters. He's a great fighter. He's skilled. People appreciate his skill set. But I mean, this doesn't look right when he wants to fight a welterweight, as you're being labeled the #1 person in the pound for pound rankings, especially from old media. I'm not saying everyone has him, but a lot of people have him #1. I even said he was #1 after his performances. But beating Caleb Smith and Avni Yildirim and Billy Joe Saunders. But what about the tough black and brown fights that are out there for Canelo, like David Benavidez, who's been incessantly calling him out? I could pull this all up. Everything is documented in history that David Benavidez is a monster, and he's been calling out Canelo. He's also calling out JERMALL Charlo. But somehow, some way, you see old media only pushing for Charlo to move up to fight this monster in Benavidez. But Canelo is currently at the division, and the belt, the WBC belt that he has, is actually Benavidez's belt for real. But he lost the belt on the scale because he couldn't make weight. So all in all, this is not a great situation for Canelo, because I do believe that Canelo Alvarez, his team is strategically kind of picking certain fights. Benavidez is looking crazy, and he's already at your current division. You're talking about moving up again to fight more Russian fighters, more Eastern European fighters in BIVOL and Artur Beterbiev. Now, I've been a fan of the Beterbiev fight, but I was also a fan of it years ago in lieu of Kovalev. But he fought Kovalev, who we knew was on his way out. Beterbiev, in his last performance, you know, I think it took a while to get something done. And this is what Canelo does. Canelo almost waits for some sign of vulnerability or things that he feels he can beat you, not coming off your best performance and things like that. And then maybe he'll want to fight you. You know what I mean? Right? Caleb Truax's fight with Caleb Plant, I didn't think he looked bad, but some people, including Anthony Durrell, said that they didn't think Caleb looked good. That's his last fight, right? Now Canelo wants to fight him. Kovalev almost got stopped by Anthony Yard. The very next fight was the fight with Canelo, right? Then you have Avni Yildirim. He was coming directly off a loss in a 2-year layoff. You see the pattern, and so on and so forth. Jacobs, he had tough fight after tough fight. He fought like 4 undefeated fighters in a row. Triple G lost that fight. I thought he won, but you know, it was close. Then he fought like Luis Cuba Arias. Then he had tough fights with Mad Selecki, and then a real tough fight with Derevchenko. Some people thought he lost. Guess what? Canelo Alvarez fought him next. Meanwhile, David Benavidez is looking like an absolute beast and like he on demon time, and now you don't see the same energy. Then guys like Jermall Charlo, some people are hating on his performance. I thought he looked good versus Montiel until he got gung-ho for the knockout, right? So all these fights, Jermall Charlo are better. Demetrius, Andrade, David Benavidez, they're all better than Canelo versus certain guys like Saunders, because at least you have to respect Jermall Charlo's power. You know, Andrade's a southpaw with a tricky style. Benavidez is a killer, and if you can't withstand what he got coming, then it's going to be a long night for you. You know, BETERBIEV got a lot of power, but I think David Benavidez got a lot of power and he's dynamic. So to me, it looks like Canelo's not trying to fight certain fighters unless he has that stylistic advantage. Like he'll fight Errol Spence, but Errol Spence got to give up 2.5 weight classes. You know what I mean? But why don't you fight the super middleweight, you know, Errol Spence, somebody with nasty body shots, David Benavidez? Why don't you fight the middleweight Errol Spence, which is like a Jermall Charlo? I'm not saying they fight exactly the same, but you guys get the comparison. You know, what Errol embodies at welterweight, he's a beast, he's raw, but you want to put him out of his element to make that fight. So to me, this is what people have said. Ton of Mexican legends have said that to Canelo. Like he kind of, Eric Morales said Canelo waits for the fighters to deteriorate or show signs of vulnerability. Basically the same thing that I told you, right? Eric Morales criticized Canelo fights big names when they're old. Eric Morales blasts Canelo for fighting old shot fighters. You know what I mean? And this is Canelo. If his team wanted to change it, then they could easily change it. It's always something. It's like Kovalev almost got stopped by Yard. Ward had already stopped him. Alida Alvarez stopped him. Then you fight him. You didn't fight Kovalev fresh off the Jean Pascal performance, right? And it's the same thing. Now, Errol Spence has been looking great. We'll see what happens in the Pacquiao fight, but it's pretty much the same thing. He has to be at a major weight deficit. If Errol Spence was bigger than Canelo and he was a natural 175 pounder, I highly doubt that Canelo would be summoning his name right now based on what Canelo has previously showed us. Like you have a 42-year-old Pacquiao and he's fighting the #1 person in the welterweight division. Canelo, the styles that I think give him the most trouble, I haven't been able to, unfortunately, watch him fight. Like my top fights for Canelo would be Jermall Charlo, Benavidez. I would probably put Andrade in there just because I want to see it so long and he has a tricky style. And then maybe BETERBIEV, right? Those are probably the top. I do like the Caleb Plant fight as well. So, but even Caleb Plant, like I said, his style, some people say his power. I think to beat Canelo, a guy like David Benavidez, he's dynamic enough. He has the height, he has arm reach. His punch variety is stupid. His hand speed is stupid. So that would push him to the brink. Same thing with guys like Charlo or even Andrade. It's just styles make fights. Y'all know this. Let me know what you guys think. Canelo wants to fight a welterweight. You know, he's done this with the Amir Khan situation. We've seen it with Triple G, Brook. Right? It's just not my favorite thing. Let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know how I did in this video. My name is Ego. If you enjoyed the content, show a like, share the video, subscribe to the channel, you know, and I'm going to keep putting out the content. So again, Canelo's a terrific fighter, but it's weird that he wants to fight Errol Spence at 164, if I'm being honest. It's really weird because he can't go down to 160 for Charlo or Andrade. They could have fought at 54, 60, 55, 64.5, but he could fight Chavez Jr. and all these other people at these weird weights. So basically, Canelo Alvarez wants to fight against Errol Spence at the same weight class that he fought against Chavez Jr. And Chavez Jr. is like 6'2", Errol Spence is not. You see what I'm saying? It don't look right. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. I promise you we working. Peace.